At first glance, Lord of the Mysteries looks like the kind of story where the monsters should be the scariest part. There are strange creatures, hidden horrors, forbidden rituals, things in the dark that should not exist. And yes, those things are terrifying, but they are not the real horror. Because in Lord of the Mysteries, the monsters are only the surface. The real horror is what the monsters reveal about the world behind them. That is what makes this story feel so much darker than normal fantasy. In most fantasy worlds, monsters are the threat. They attack villages. They haunt ruins. They stand between the hero and survival. But the world itself is usually still understandable. Lord of the Mysteries is different. Here, the monsters are not the deepest problem. They are symptoms. They are signs that something much worse is hidden underneath reality itself. And once you understand that, the whole story changes. Because now the fear is no longer just, can I survive the monster? It becomes, what kind of world creates monsters like this? That is a much darker question. And the first answer the story gives is knowledge. In most fantasy stories, knowledge is a reward. You learn more, and you become stronger. You uncover the truth, and you get closer to mastery. But in Lord of the Mysteries, knowledge often feels less like power and more like contamination. The deeper you go, the more dangerous understanding becomes. Secrets are not neutral. Truth is not comforting. And the hidden structure of the world is not something your mind can safely absorb. That is one of the most disturbing things about this setting. Ignorance is not always weakness. Sometimes ignorance is protection. That changes everything. Because now curiosity itself becomes risky. The desire to know more is no longer automatically heroic. It becomes dangerous. The more you uncover, the closer you move toward things your mind was never meant to hold. And that is what makes the monsters feel secondary. The monsters are frightening, yes. But what makes them truly horrifying is that they point toward truths far worse than themselves. They are not the end of the fear. They are the doorway to it. And once a story makes knowledge feel poisonous, the horror becomes much deeper than physical danger. Because physical danger only threatens your life. Dangerous knowledge threatens your reality. And in Lord of the Mysteries, that reality starts becoming more unstable the higher you climb. That leads to the second layer of horror, the fear of losing yourself. In many stories, power is exciting. You gain abilities, you evolve, you move beyond ordinary limits. But in Lord of the Mysteries, power feels wrong. Not because it is weak, but because it comes with erosion. The higher the power, the greater the risk that something human starts slipping away. That is what makes this world so disturbing. The danger is not just that something might kill you. The danger is that something might change what you are. And that kind of horror is much harder to fight. A monster can tear your body apart, but losing yourself is slower, worse. Because now the fear is no longer only death, it is transformation, corruption, instability, the possibility that you may survive, but no longer remain fully yourself. That is darker than ordinary monster horror, because it attacks identity itself. And once a story starts threatening identity, it stops feeling like simple fantasy danger. It starts feeling existential. Who are you once higher truths begin reshaping your mind? Who are you once power demands more than your body? Who are you once your humanity is no longer stable? Those are the kinds of questions Lord of the Mysteries keeps pushing its characters toward, and that is why the monsters stop being the center. Because the deeper horror is not being eaten by something inhuman. It is becoming something less human yourself. And then the story becomes even darker. Because above the monsters, above the pathways, above the rituals and hidden dangers, there are the gods. Or at least, things that occupy the space where gods should be. And this is where the horror becomes truly overwhelming. In many fantasy settings, gods are still understandable on some level. They may be cruel or distant, but they still feel like beings with personalities. In Lord of the Mysteries, the higher powers often feel different, less like divine rulers, more like catastrophes. They do not feel like comforting creators or wise guardians. They feel ancient, inhuman, detached, too large to care in any human way. That is what makes them worse than monsters. A monster is terrifying because it is inhuman. A godlike being in this world is more terrifying because it is beyond the category of human entirely. It does not just threaten your life, it threatens your sense of proportion. It makes human beings feel small, fragile, accidental. And once that happens, horror stops being local. It becomes cosmic. That is why the higher you go in Lord of the Mysteries, the more the fear shifts. At the beginning, you might fear what is hiding in the shadows. Later, you start fearing the truth behind the shadows. And eventually, you start fearing the structure of the world itself. Because that is the final layer of horror, the possibility that reality is not safe. In many stories, monsters live inside the world, but the world itself remains solid. In Lord of the Mysteries, the deeper fear is that the world itself may be resting on foundations that are already wrong. That reality is not simply threatened by horror. It may be built on horror. That is a very different kind of fear. Now, the problem is not that something terrible is lurking in the dark. The problem is that the dark may be the truth underneath everything. The rituals, the gods, the hidden knowledge, the transformations, the inhuman powers. They all point in the same direction, toward a reality that becomes less stable, less safe, and less human the more clearly you see it. And that is why the real horror in Lord of the Mysteries is not the monsters. The monsters are only the visible part. The real horror is knowledge that corrupts, power that erodes identity, gods that feel like disasters, and a world where truth itself may be more dangerous than anything hiding inside it. That is what makes the story so disturbing. It is not a world where horror occasionally breaks in. It is a world where horror may already be woven into the fabric of reality. And once you understand that, the monsters stop feeling like the main threat. They start feeling like warnings. Warnings that something much deeper, much older, and much harder to survive is waiting underneath them. So the next time someone says the scariest thing in Lord of the Mysteries is the monsters, I think they are missing the point. The monsters are frightening, but the real horror is what the world becomes once you realize the monsters were never the deepest problem. They were just the first clue. So what do you think is the scariest part? The monsters, the gods, or the truth itself? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy dark fantasy and cosmic dread, subscribe to the channel.